Hey everyone, this is Corey Farrington. As you can see from the title, what I kind of studied and researched and collected data on was the effects of an enhanced vocabulary instruction. Um, so really, the purpose of this study was for me to see if a focus on vocabulary had a positive correlation with academic growth. So kind of the reason for this study, what spurred my interest in this topic, is the fact that I have a lot of Hispanic students in my class. Majority of those students are ELL served, some of which speak absolutely no English, so that's definitely fun. So I wanted to see if low academic growth was in large part due to that lack of vocabulary knowledge. So obviously this doesn't just apply to Hispanic students, so this could be tested among my entire classes, but the high number of Hispanic students, like I said, is what led me to this study. So really what I did, I had my students take a pre-test on their data, on the standards that I was going to teach. That pre-test was a test that I created on a website called usatestprep.com. This is actually a site that me, along with the other science teachers at my school, utilize for pre and post tests. So I created the pre-test and had students take this test. And what I love about USA Test Prep is it breaks the data down by standard. So I can actually see what their average score was on each standard. So then I have 4 classes. So 2 of these classes, my first and sixth period, I kind of just taught as usual. So obviously I would teach the vocabulary, but I didn't really do anything extra to enhance that knowledge. My second and fifth period classes are the ones that I kind of utilize some different vocabulary techniques. Really what this meant in most of these classes were I spent extra time going over vocabulary with them. So if you're familiar at all with a website called Quizlet, you can kind of create these flashcards for your students, but obviously it's through technology. So really with my second and fifth period, what I would do is have 15 minutes either after the warm-up or 15 minutes at the end of class. As a class, we would go through these flashcards and we would really just kind of drill and kill this vocabulary. A couple of times it was a little different of an activity. It was more of a kind of a crossword where the hint, if you will, was the definition, and they had to know what the word was in order to complete this crossword puzzle. So again, these were activities I did not do with my first and sixth period classes. So a second thing that I did, aside from the pre and post tests, was student surveys. And so on these surveys, they had to answer questions on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 being I don't agree at all, I highly disagree. 5 being I very much agree, or felt confident. So, on a scale of 1 to 5, how strongly do you believe your knowledge of vocabulary helped you on the post test? That was one question that they had. Another question was, on a scale of 1 to 5, how confident were you about the post test? So really, how confident were you going in? How strongly do you believe that vocabulary helped you? And again, this was only asked of my second and fifth period classes, since those were the classes I utilized these vocabulary instructions with. So once all was said and done, and I had them take the post test at the end of the unit, I broke down my results. So this is a spreadsheet that I created based off of how USA Test Prep broke down those standards. So these were kind of the different elements within the standard that I tested them on. So you can see I tested on matter transferred through food webs, energy, sun and food webs, relationships among organisms, and environmental changes in survival, as well as matter recycle organisms. So I broke it down by period. So the average score on these different elements in my first period, you can see right here. For the post test, here's their average on the post test, but then I had it give me the growth. So as you can see, my second and fifth periods here, they actually had a higher average growth. Now obviously you can see that there are some elements that they might not have had the highest growth on, but again, overall, they definitely showed a higher growth in each element. So like this says, I taught my first and sixth periods as I usually would, whereas second and fifth period kind of had those enhanced activities. So numerically speaking, obviously the numbers show us that there was an overall growth with an enhanced vocabulary instruction. So I found it interesting too that the surveys kind of agreed with that. Students showed a much higher confidence level going into the post-test than students who did not receive that vocabulary instruction. So ultimately, as I move on to the next year's teaching, I definitely do plan on having a stronger focus on vocabulary. Part of my concern was that it would take away from my time to actually teach in other areas, but obviously it had a positive correlation to their academic growth. So that's the end of my SDC, so I hope you enjoyed it.